You still playing soldier, or did you finally learn how to be a civilian? The man's voice was like gravel scraping across concrete. Anya Sharma didn't look up from wiping down the counter of the dusty diner. She could feel his stare, heavy, judgmental. The same stare she'd been getting for the past 2 years in this small mountain town. Just trying to make a living? Mark, same as you. He laughed, a short, barking sound that held no humor. Right, making a living by hoarding a pack of killer dogs up on that ridge. The whole town's talking. Say you're one of those broken ones came back from the war with more screws loose than a junkyard truck. Anya's hands stopped moving. She placed the rag down slowly, deliberately. She could feel the familiar coldness seeping into her veins, the calm before the storm she had fought so hard to tame. Her 2 dogs, Kilo and Ghost, were in her old Ford F-150 outside. They would sense the shift in her heart rate. They always did. This story, it's one of sacrifice, of wounds you can't see, and the unbreakable bond between a warrior and her pack. It's a story that will stay with you long after it's over, so stick around to the end, because the lesson it holds is one we all need to hear. And if you believe in second chances, show your support by hitting that subscribe button. It's free, and it means the world to us. The diner was quiet, save for the buzz of an old refrigerator. Mark leaned forward, his beer-soaked breath washing over her. What's the matter? Cat got your tongue? Or is it just that you don't talk to people who didn't get a chest full of medals for what was it you guys did again? Secret stuff, right? Anya finally lifted her head. Her eyes, the color of a stormy sea, locked onto his. 38 years old, but in that moment, she looked like she carried the weight of a century. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe, practical bun, and though she wore a simple flannel shirt and jeans, her posture was ramrod, straight, a ghost of the uniform she once lived in. Some things are better left unsaid, Mark. Her voice was low, steady, a warning. Oh, I get it, he sneered, gesturing to the other 2 patrons in the diner, who were now watching intently. Too good for us simple folk. She was a Navy SEAL, you know, he announced to the room. One of the first women, real-life G.I. Jane, came back here 2 years ago after her team got wiped out. Hasn't been right in the head since. The air crackled. The mention of her team, of Commander Davis, it was a line. A line he had just crossed with muddy boots. Anya pushed herself away from the counter, her movements fluid, economical. There was no wasted motion. She walked around the counter and stood before him. He was taller, heavier, but he instinctively took a step back. You will not speak his name again, she said, each word a chip of ice. You have no idea what sacrifice means. You sit here day after day, getting soft in your little corner of the world, while better men than you will ever be, paid the ultimate price, so you could have that privilege. Is that a threat? He blustered, trying to regain his footing. Anya didn't answer. She simply held his gaze. In her eyes, he didn't see anger. He saw something far more terrifying. He saw emptiness, a vast, disciplined void where fear was supposed to be. He saw the truth of what he was, and the ghost of what she had been. He swallowed hard, his bravado crumbling. He mumbled an apology, threw a few crumpled bills on the table, and practically ran out of the diner. Anya stood there for a long moment, the adrenaline slowly receding, leaving behind the familiar ache of memory. The owner, a kind, elderly woman named Maria, placed a gentle hand on her arm. He's a fool, Anya, don't listen to him. Anya gave a small, tired nod. I know. She walked out into the cool evening air. Her truck was parked under the flickering neon sign. Inside, 2 sets of intelligent eyes watched her approach. Kilo, a young, powerful Belgian Malinois with a coat the color of desert sand, sat alert in the passenger seat. On the floor, resting his head on his paws, was Ghost. Older, scarred, with a dark, almost black coat and one ear that flopped slightly, a memento from their last stop together. They were her fire team, her family, all she had left. Let's go home, boys, she whispered, her voice thick with an emotion she would never show to the world. Kilo whined softly, nudging her hand with his nose as she climbed in. Ghost thumped his tail twice against the floorboard. It was their routine, their language. A silent understanding forged in the crucible of combat. Driving up the winding dirt road to her small, isolated ranch, she thought it would be just another night. Another night of fighting the ghosts of Afghanistan in her dreams. She was wrong. Tonight the war was coming home. The ranch was less of a home and more of a fortress against the world. A small, weathered cabin surrounded by acres of fenced-in land, miles from the nearest neighbor in the foothills of the San Jacinto Mountains. It was a place where the silence was loud, filled only by the wind in the pines and the soft padding of paws on the wooden porch. This was Anya Sharma's self-imposed exile, a penance for survival. She had been a master-at-arms first class, a canine handler attached to SEAL Team 3. Her call sign was Shepherd. She and Ghost had been the best, a legendary pair in the special operations community. They could track a whisper on the wind, find a needle in a haystack of mountain ranges. But 2 years ago, in a dusty village in the Helmand province, everything had gone wrong. A bad piece of intel in ambush. Commander Michael Davis, her mentor, her friend, the man who had seen the warrior in her when no one else did, had died in her arms. Ghost had taken a piece of shrapnel to the side, and Anya had come home with a piece of her soul missing. She left the Navy, unable to bear the thought of another handler working with Ghost, and unable to face the pity in the eyes of her teammates. She bought this ranch with her combat pay and started a quiet non-profit, rescuing and retraining dogs that others had given up on. Aggressive dogs, traumatized dogs, broken dogs. She understood them. They didn't need words. They just needed patience, a firm hand, and someone who wasn't afraid of their scars. Tonight, her routine was the same as always. She fed the half-dozen dogs in her care, checking their wounds, speaking to them in the low, calm tones that settled their anxieties. Kilo and Ghost followed her everywhere, her to shadows. Later, as darkness settled over the mountains, she sat on her porch, cleaning a vintage rifle, the rhythmic, metallic clicks of familiar comfort. Kilo lay at her feet, while Ghost sat beside her, his gaze fixed on the long dirt road leading to her property. Suddenly, Ghost's head lifted, a low growl rumbled in his chest, so deep Anya felt it more than heard it. Kilo was instantly on his feet, hackles raised, his body a coiled spring of muscle. "Easy, boys," Anya murmured, placing the rifle down. "What is it?" Then she saw it, headlights weaving their way up her private road. No one ever came up here, not without calling first. Her hand went to the pistol holstered at the small of her back. Old habits die hard. The vehicle was a black government SUV, the kind that tries to look inconspicuous and fails spectacularly. It pulled to a stop 50 yards from her cabin. A man got out, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a suit that looked out of place in the dusty landscape. As he stepped into the light of her porch, her breath caught in her throat. Captain Marcus Vance, her former commanding officer. A man who looked like he was carved from granite and old leather. He hadn't changed at all. The same hard lines around his mouth, the same eyes that saw everything and gave away nothing. "Shepherd," he said. His voice was the same, too. A baritone that could command a platoon or calm a grieving widow with equal authority. Hearing her old call sign was like a punch to the gut. "It's just Anya now, Captain," she replied, her voice flat. "You're a long way from Coronado." "Business brings me where I need to be," he said, stopping at the bottom of her porch steps. He looked at Kilo and Ghost, who stood flanking her, an unmovable wall of canine loyalty. "I see you're still keeping good company." "They're the only company I need." The words were clipped. She wasn't making this easy for him. "What do you want, Marcus?" He sighed, the sound heavy with the weariness of command. "I wouldn't be here if it wasn't important, Anya. It's about a ghost from your past, our past." Anya felt a cold dread creep up her spine. There was only one ghost big enough to bring Captain Vance to her door. Who? Caleb Thorne. The name hit her like a physical blow. Caleb Reaper Thorne. A former Delta Force operator, a legend turned mercenary. A man who operated in the same shadows they did, but for a price. He was a phantom, a whisper on the intelligence channels. And he was connected to their last mission, the one that took Commander Davis. "Thorne is dead," she said, her voice tight. "Intel said he was killed in a drone strike in Yemen 6 months ago." "Intel was wrong," Vance said grimly. "He's here. On U.S. soil, we have credible intel. He's set up a logistics hub for a major smuggling operation not far from here. In the old decommissioned comm station up on Mount Laguna." Anya stared at him, her mind racing. The comm station. A Cold War relic, abandoned for decades. It was a maze of concrete bunkers and radio towers, a perfect place to disappear. "What kind of smuggling?" Vance's eyes met hers, and in them, she saw a flicker of something she hadn't seen in years: fear, weapons, drugs, and people. Anya. He's working with the cartels, moving their product and their victims across the border. But it's worse than that. He's also acquired some sensitive materials. Things that shouldn't be in the hands of a man like him. Anya gripped the porch railing, her knuckles turning white. Why are you telling me this? Send a team. Hit the station. Take him down. We can't, Vance said, his voice dropping. He's a ghost. The feds have been trying to get a beat on him for months, but he's always one step ahead. He knows our playbook because he helped write it. Any official approach, and he'll vanish, along with whatever he's planning. We need a deniable asset, someone who can get close, who can operate outside the lines. Someone he won't see coming. The unspoken words hung in the air between them. Someone like you. No, Anya said, shaking her head. Absolutely not. I'm out, Marcus. I hung up my gear. That part of my life is over. Is it? He challenged, his voice quiet but sharp. Or are you just hiding from it up here? Anya Thorne was involved in the Helmand op. We didn't know it at the time, but new intelligence confirms it. He sold the intel that led the insurgents to your team's position. He was working both sides. The world tilted on its axis. Anya felt the blood drain from her face. Commander Davis hadn't died because of a simple intelligence failure. He had been betrayed, murdered for profit. He's the one who killed Mike, Vance said, pressing the point home. He put that RPG in the air. He's responsible. And now he's here operating in our backyard with impunity. I can't let that stand. And I don't think you can either. He was right. The carefully constructed walls she had built around her heart began to crumble. This wasn't about the Navy anymore. This wasn't about a mission. This was about justice for Mike. What do you need me to do? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Vance allowed himself a small, grim smile. Reconnaissance only. Get eyes on the station. Confirm his presence, assess his strength, and get out. We just need a confirmation, a foothold. I need the shepherd and her pack for one last hunt. Anya looked down at Ghost. The old dog looked up at her, his wise, knowing eyes seeming to understand everything. He leaned his head against her leg, a silent pledge of allegiance. Kilo whined, nudging her hand, ready for a command. Her pack was ready. The question was she? She took a deep breath, the cold mountain air feeling like fire in her lungs. One recon, she said, then I'm done, for good. That's all I'm asking, Vance lied. They both knew it was just the beginning. The moon was a sliver of bone in the ink-black sky. Anya moved through the dense chaparral like a phantom, her feet making no sound on the rocky terrain. She wore simple, dark hiking gear, but the equipment she carried was anything but simple. A thermal monocular, a high-frequency radio, and the familiar weight of her suppressed pistol on her hip. Kilo and Ghost flanked her, moving with the same preternatural stealth. Their dark coats made them all but invisible in the shadows. They weren't just dogs, they were extensions of her senses. Ghost's ears could pick up a snapped twig from 100 yards away. Kilo's nose could parse the scent of gun oil and human sweat from the natural aromas of pine and sage. They stopped at a ridge line overlooking the old comm station. The place was a concrete scar on the mountainside. A primary bunker was built into the hill, surrounded by a perimeter of tall, chain-link fencing topped with concertina wire. 3 dilapidated radio towers stood like skeletal sentinels against the stars. To a casual observer, it looked abandoned, but Anya saw the details her training had taught her to see. What do you see, boys? She whispered. She raised the thermal monocular. The fence wasn't cold. Faint heat signatures ran along its length, electrified. New motion sensor cameras, cleverly disguised as bird nests, were placed at the corners. The main gate was reinforced, and she could see the faint outline of pressure plates buried in the dirt road leading up to it. This was no simple smuggling depot. This was a fortress. Her gaze swept over the main bunker. Most of it was underground, cold. But one section glowed with heat, a generator. And there were vents pumping out warm air, people. At least a dozen heat signatures moving inside. She zoomed in on the entrance. 2 guards, armed with military-grade rifles, stood watch. They weren't cartel thugs. They moved with the disciplined efficiency of trained soldiers, mercenaries, Thorne's men. Suddenly, Ghost stiffened, his body going rigid. He issued a silent alert, a subtle shift in posture that only Anya would recognize. He was looking down a secondary path, a small, overgrown trail that led to a rear maintenance hatch of the bunker. Kilo, sensing Ghost's alert, turned his head, his nose twitching. Anya followed their lead, crawling through the brush to get a better vantage point. What she saw made her blood run cold. Two of Thorne's men were dragging someone towards the hatch. A young woman, no older than 19. She was gagged, her eyes wide with terror. They were handling her like a sack of grain, their movements rough and impatient. Behind them walked another man. He was tall, lean, and moved with a chilling, predatory grace. Even from this distance, Anya recognized him from the intelligence photos, Caleb Reaper Thorne. He looked older than in the photos. His face was a roadmap of hard living, but his eyes, even in the thermal image, seemed to burn with a cold fire. He was speaking into a satellite phone, his expression calm, almost bored. As if trafficking a human being was just another Tuesday. Anya's orders were clear: observe and report, do not engage. But watching that girl, watching Thorne's casual cruelty, it ignited the dormant warrior within her. Commander Davis wouldn't have just watched, he would have acted. "Vance, this is Shepard. Do you copy?" She whispered into her radio. "Loud and clear. Shepard, what's your status?" "Target confirmed. Hostile force is larger than anticipated, at least 15. All professional mercs. The facility is hardened, electrified fence, sensors, the works. And Vance, he has a hostage. A civilian female. They're taking her inside now." There was a pause on the other end. "Understood. Do not engage. Shepard, I repeat, do not engage. Your orders are to observe and exfil. That girl doesn't have time for us to wait for a full assault team, Captain," Anya hissed back. "She'd disappear into his network by morning." "Those are your orders, Master at Arms." Vance's voice was firm, official. The use of her old rank was a clear message: stand down. But Anya was looking at Ghost. The old dog was looking back at her, a low growl still vibrating in his chest. He was waiting for the command, for the order to do what they were trained to do, to protect the innocent, to hunt the wicked. In that moment, Anya made a choice. Some orders weren't meant to be followed. "Shepard, acknowledge." Vance's voice crackled in her ear. Anya reached up and switched off her radio. "Okay, boys," she whispered, her voice hardening into the tone of command they knew so well. "New plan. We're going to create a diversion. A big one." She scanned the compound again. Her eyes landed on the generator. It was housed in a small, corrugated metal shed 50 yards from the main bunker. It powered everything. The fence, the lights, the cameras. It was their weak point. "Ghost," she said, her voice barely audible. The old dog's eyes snapped to hers. "You remember Watchdog? You create the noise. Draw the guards on the east perimeter." "Kilo," she looked at the younger, faster dog. "You're with me. We're going for the power. On my mark." She took a deep breath, the world narrowing down to this single, insane moment. She was breaking every rule. She was alone, outgunned, and attacking a fortified position run by one of the most dangerous men on the planet, and she had never felt more alive. "Execute." The command was a whisper on the wind. Ghost took off, a black streak against the dark earth. He didn't run towards the guards. He ran parallel to the fence line, staying deep in the shadows. Then, he began to bark. It wasn't the frantic yapping of a stray. It was a deep, ferocious, tactical bark, designed to sound like multiple, aggressive animals. He moved as he barked, throwing his voice, making it seem like the sound was coming from everywhere at once. "What the hell was that?" one of the guards at the main gate yelled. "Coyotes, probably," the other replied, but he sounded nervous. Ghost changed his position again, letting out a terrifying snarl that echoed through the canyon. "That did it. Go check it out." A voice crackled over the guards' radios, likely from inside the bunker. "East perimeter, take a team." 3 guards emerged from the bunker, fanning out and heading east, away from the generator. The diversion was working. "Let's go, Kilo." Anya and Kilo moved as one. They slid down the scree slope, using the noise of the guards' movements to cover their own. They reached the fence near the generator shed. Anya pulled a small, powerful set of bolt cutters from her pack. They were insulated, but cutting alive, High-voltage fence was still a massive risk. "Stand guard," she commanded Kilo. The Malinois took a position a few feet away, his body low to the ground, his eyes scanning the darkness, ears swiveling to catch the faintest sound. Anya took a breath, held it, and cut. The cutter sparked violently, and a jolt ran up her arms, but the wire snapped. She cut the second wire, then the third, creating a small opening. She slipped through, Kilo right behind her. They were inside. The generator shed was secured with a heavy padlock. No time to pick it. She pulled a small breaching charge from her pack, a tool for emergencies. This qualified. She placed the charge on the lock, set a 5-second timer, and took cover with Kilo behind a stack of old barrels. The charge went off with a sharp, contained crack. The lock was gone. She swung the door open. The diesel generator was roaring, a deafening beast of noise and heat. Anya scanned the control panel. She didn't have time to figure out the complex wiring. She went for the direct approach. She saw the main fuel line running from a large tank into the engine. Kilo, the rag. Kilo, who had trained for this, immediately grabbed a thick, oil-soaked rag from a nearby workbench. It was a specific scent command. Anya took the rag, pulled out a flare, and struck it. "Sorry about this," she muttered to the humming machine. She stuffed the lit end of the flare into the rag, creating a makeshift, slow-burning fuse. Then she jammed the whole thing into a crevice next to the fuel line's intake valve. They had maybe 60 seconds before the rag burned through and ignited the fuel. She and Kilo scrambled out of the shed and back through the fence, just as shouts erupted from the direction Ghost had led the guards. They had found nothing and were getting suspicious. Anya and Kilo sprinted back up the ridge, melting back into the darkness. They reached their observation post just in time. The generator shed exploded. Not a massive, Hollywood fireball, but a concussive hump that sent the metaled ore flying and was followed by a plume of thick, black smoke. Instantly, the lights in the compound flickered and died. The hum of the electric fence went silent. The entire station was plunged into darkness and chaos. Alarms started blaring, running on battery backup. Men were shouting, their flashlights cutting frantic, confused beams through the night. The front gate guards were disoriented. It was the perfect moment. From the rear of the bunker, the maintenance hatch was thrown open. Thorn himself appeared, shoving the terrified girl out in front of him. He was using her as a shield. Another mercenary followed, covering their six. They were making a run for it, heading for a tactical vehicle parked in the shadows. Damn it, Anya cursed under her breath. Her diversion had given him an escape route. She raised her pistol, trying to get a clear shot, but it was too risky with the girl. Thorn was smart. He knew she was out there. He knew someone was playing his own game against him. "You want her," Thorn yelled into the darkness, his voice carrying in the sudden silence. "Come and get her, Shepard. Let's finish what we started in Helmand." He knew it was her. The realization sent a chill down her spine that had nothing to do with the night air. He had been expecting her. This wasn't just a random encounter. This was a trap. And she had just walked right into it. Thorn shoved the girl towards the armored SUV, his men forming a protective circle. Anya watched, helpless, as they bundled her inside. The engine roared to life, and the vehicle peeled out, its headlights cutting a swath through the darkness as it sped down the mountain road. Thorn wasn't running from the chaos, he was using it. And he had just taken the only leverage she had. Inside the now darkened bunker, alarms wailed on battery power. Men were shouting, their voices a mix of confusion and anger. Anya's gambit had thrown Thorn's operation into chaos, but it had also painted a giant target on her back. "Shepard, talk to me. What the hell is going on up there?" Vance's voice suddenly blasted in her ear. She must have accidentally switched her radio back on during the sprint. "Thorn's on the move," Anya panted, her eyes tracking the taillights of the SUV as it disappeared down the mountain. "He has the girl. He's heading west on Highway 79, and Vance knew I was here. He called me by name." A heavy silence followed. "That's not possible," Vance said, but his tone lacked conviction. "Get to the exfil point. A chopper is inbound for you. We'll handle Thorn." "Negative," Anya shot back, her decision instantaneous. "He baited me, and I took it. This is on me. I'm not letting him get away with her. I'm going after him." "That's a suicide mission, Anya. You're on foot. and he's in an armored vehicle. I've got my own vehicle, she said, already moving. And he's not expecting pursuit, not from me. She sprinted back towards the hidden spot where she'd stashed her old Ford F-150, Kilo, and Ghost running effortlessly beside her. She didn't have a plan. All she had was a full tank of gas, two of the best partners on the planet, and a burning need for redemption. The hunt was on. The F-150's engine growled to life, a stark contrast to the tactical silence of the SEAL's vehicles she was used to. She careened down the fire road, spitting gravel, pushing the old truck to its limits. The suspension groaned in protest, but she held the pedal to the floor. She hit the highway and slammed on the brakes, scanning both directions. Far to the west, she saw them, two red dots, pulling away fast. "There you are," she growled. The chase was a desperate, high-stakes gamble. Thorne's SUV was faster, tougher. But Anya had something he didn't, knowledge of the terrain. She had spent 2 years driving these roads, exploring every forgotten trail and shortcut. As Thorne stayed on the main highway, a predictable path, Anya took a hard right, swerving onto a barely there dirt track that cut through the hills. It was a risky shortcut, a bone-jarring ride that threatened to tear the axle off her truck. Kilo and Ghost were braced in the cab, their bodies tense. She emerged back on the highway a mile ahead of Thorne, hidden behind a rock outcropping. She killed her lights and waited, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Seconds later, the SUV roared past her position. Now she was the hunter, and he was the prey. She followed at a distance, using the intermittent cover of hills and darkness. Thorne wasn't heading for the border or the city. He was heading for a place she knew well, a series of abandoned warehouses in the industrial outskirts of a forgotten desert town. A perfect place to transfer cargo or a hostage. As she drew closer, she saw the SUV slow and turn into the warehouse district. She parked her truck a quarter mile away and got out, the dogs flanking her. The air was still and cold. "All right, boys," she whispered, chambering around in her rifle, which she'd retrieved from its hidden compartment under the back seat. "No more diversions. This time, we go right through the front door. Ghost, you're on point. Find the girl. Kilo, you're on me. Watch R6. They moved through the labyrinth of decaying buildings, shadows in a concrete graveyard. Ghost led them, his nose to the ground, unerringly guiding them toward one specific warehouse. He stopped at a large, corrugated steel door, pressing his body against it and giving a low, almost inaudible whine. The girl was inside. Anya peered through a grimy window. The scene inside was exactly what she feared. The girl was tied to a chair in the center of the large, open space. Thorne stood over her, speaking quietly into his sat phone. 4 of his heavily armed mercenaries were positioned around the room. It was a classic kill box, a trap laid specifically for her. "I know you're out there, Shepard," Thorne's voice suddenly boomed through a loudspeaker mounted outside the warehouse. The sound made her jump. "I'm impressed. You're even better than Davis said you were, but this is where it ends. Your sentimentality was always your weakness. Come on in. Let's have a conversation. Or the girl dies. You have 30 seconds. Anya's blood turned to ice. Vance's team would be at least 20 minutes out. She was on her own. She looked at Kilo, then at Ghost. There was no fear in their eyes. Only loyalty. Only readiness. She keyed her radio, her voice a low, steady whisper. "Vance has me pinned down. Warehouse 7, east side of the district. The girl is inside. It's a trap. Hold your position. Anya, we're coming." "No time," she said. "Tell my parents, tell them I love them." She turned off the radio again. This was it, the final reckoning. "Okay, boys," she said, her voice filled with a strange calm. "Let's go to work." She didn't go to the front door. She went to the side, to a series of loading bay doors. She placed a small breaching charge on the lock of the farthest one, then sprinted to the door closest to where the mercs were positioned. The charge blew, and the far door rattled violently. As expected, 2 of the mercs broke formation, heading to investigate the noise. That's when Anya kicked in the closer door, rolling through the opening, rifle up. She fired to controlled bursts. The 2 remaining mercs, caught by surprise, went down before they could even raise their weapons. Thorne spun around, pulling the girl up as a human shield. "Predictable, Shepard," he roared, pressing a pistol to the girl's temple. But he hadn't predicted her partners. Ghost, Kilo, go! Ghost, the silent veteran, streaked in from the side. He didn't go for Thorn. He went for the legs, clamping his powerful jaws onto Thorn's calf. Thorn screamed in pain and surprise, his balance thrown. At the same instant, Kilo, a blur of speed and fury, launched himself through the air, hitting Thorn square in the chest. The force of the impact sent Thorn stumbling backward, away from the girl, his pistol flying from his grasp. Anya was already moving, scooping up the girl and pulling her towards cover behind a stack of crates. "Stay down," she yelled. Thorn, enraged, scrambled for his weapon, but Kilo was on him, a whirlwind of teeth and claws. Ghost maintained his grip on his leg, anchoring him. But Thorn was a Delta operator. He was tough. He pulled a combat knife from his boot and slashed wildly, catching Kilo across the shoulder. The dog yelped in pain but didn't release his attack. "Kilo!" Anya screamed. That moment of distraction was all Thorn needed. He kicked Ghost with his free leg, breaking the dog's hold, and scrambled away from Kilo, grabbing his pistol from the floor. He brought the weapon up, aiming it straight at Anya. Time seemed to slow down. Anya saw the muzzle flash. She felt a searing, white-hot pain rip through her shoulder, spinning her around and slamming her into the concrete floor. Her rifle clattered away. Darkness swam at the edge of her vision. "Your weakness was always loyalty," Thorn panted, limping towards her, his face a mask of fury, his leg bleeding freely. "Loyalty to a dead man. Loyalty to a bunch of damn dogs." He stood over her, raising the pistol for the final shot. Anya stared up the barrel, her vision blurring. "This is it," she thought. "I'm sorry, Mike, I failed." But as Thorn's finger tightened on the trigger, a dark shape launched itself from the shadows. Ghost. The old warrior, injured and bleeding, threw himself at Thorn with every last ounce of his strength. He wasn't aiming for a leg or an arm. He was aiming for the throat. The pistol discharged, the bullet ricocheting off the ceiling as Thorn was slammed backward. Ghost's jaws locked onto his neck. They fell in a desperate, thrashing heap. Anya pushed through the pain, crawling towards her rifle. She could hear the distant sound of sirens and helicopter blades. Vance was coming, but it would be too late. Kilo, bleeding but still in the fight, was trying to pin Thorn's arms. Thorn, in a final, desperate act, managed to get his knife free again. He drove it deep into Ghost's side. The old dog whimpered, a sound of profound pain and betrayal, but his jaw remained locked. He was buying her time, with his life. Anya finally reached her rifle. She rolled onto her back, ignoring the fire in her shoulder, and brought the weapon to bear. Through her tears, she saw one clear shot. It was a shot she had trained her entire life to make. She took a breath, she let it out, and she pulled the trigger. The shot was clean, precise. Caleb Thorn crumpled to the ground, his reign of terror over. Anya let the rifle fall, her strength finally giving out. She crawled over to Ghost, who lay whimpering on the floor, his breathing shallow. "Hey, old man," she whispered, her hand stroking his head. "You did good. You did so good." Ghost licked her hand weakly, his tail giving one last, faint thump against the concrete. His eyes, full of a lifetime of loyalty, began to glaze over. "No, please, Ghost," she begged, tears streaming down her face as she pulled him into her lap. "Don't leave me. Not you, too." The warehouse doors burst open, and the room was flooded with the blinding lights of tactical teams. Captain Vance rushed to her side, his face a mask of concern. "Anya, me Dix," he yelled. But Anya wasn't listening. She was holding her partner, her friend, her silent warrior, as his life slipped away. She had won the battle. She had gotten justice for Commander Davis. But in the cold, dusty warehouse, surrounded by the flashing lights of a world she no longer belonged to, she had never felt more alone. The shepherd had lost a member of her flock, and the silence he left behind was deafening. The world came back to her in sterile white flashes and the rhythmic beep of a heart monitor. The fire in her shoulder had been replaced by a dull, throbbing ache. She opened her eyes. Captain Vance was sitting in a chair by her hospital bed, his head in his hands. He looked 10 years older. "He's gone, isn't he?" Anya's voice was a dry rasp. Vance looked up, his eyes bloodshot. He didn't have to answer. She already knew. He just nodded slowly. "Ghost saved my life, Marcus," she whispered. "He saved all our lives." "I know," Vance said, his voice thick. He'll be buried with full military honors. He earned it. Anya closed her eyes, a single tear tracing a path through the grime on her cheek. A military funeral for a dog. It seemed both absurd and perfectly right. The girl, she asked. She's safe? Shaken up, but safe. Her name is Elena. Thorn was trafficking her to a client in Europe. You saved her from a nightmare, Anya. They sat in silence for a long time. The beeping of the monitor was the only sound. Kilo, Anya finally asked, afraid of the answer. He's banged up, Vance said, a small bit of relief in his tone. Deep gash on his shoulder, some cracked ribs, but the vet says he's a fighter. He'll make a full recovery. He's been asking for you. Anya managed a weak smile. The thought of Kilo, her steadfast shadow, gave her a reason to fight through the pain. Thorn's network is crumbling, Vance continued, shifting into business mode, perhaps as a way to cope. With him gone, the whole thing is falling like a house of cards. We're rolling up his associates from here to the Mexican border. And we found what he was really after. It wasn't just about the smuggling. He slid a tablet onto her bed. It showed schematics for a sophisticated dirty bomb. The components were things Thorn had been smuggling in piece by piece. The target was written in his own hand. Naval Base Coronado, during Fleet Week. Anya stared at the screen, a chilling realization dawning on her. This wasn't just about money. This was personal. He wanted to hurt us. To burn down everything Mike died for. He was going to kill thousands, Vance said grimly. And you stopped him, you and your dogs. You saved the day, Shepard. The old calcine didn't sting this time. It felt earned. She had faced the ghost of her past and, despite the cost, she had won. The wound in her shoulder was clean. It would heal. The wound in her soul, the one that had festered for 2 years, that was beginning to heal, too. Months passed, the seasons changed, the raw, jagged edges of grief began to soften, like a stone tumbled in a river. Anya's shoulder healed, leaving a puckered, angry scar that she wore like a medal. She was back at her ranch, back with her dogs, but something was different. The silence was no longer heavy with ghosts, it was peaceful. Kilo was always by her side, his own scars a mirror to hers. He was quieter now, more serious, as if he had inherited the old soul wisdom of his fallen packmate. At the foot of a tall pine tree overlooking the valley, there was a simple granite marker. It read, MWD Ghost, K998, SEAL Team 3, a warrior, a friend, always faithful. Anya visited it every morning. One afternoon, Captain Vance's black SUV came up the road again. This time, there was no tension. Anya met him on the porch with 2 glasses of iced tea. Kilo sat at her feet, watching Vance with calm, intelligent eyes. The place looks good, Vance said, taking in the well-kept kennels and the happy, barking dogs. It's a work in progress, Anya replied. They keep me busy. They talked for a while about small things, the weather, the town. The Navy, finally. Vance got to the reason for his visit. The brass wants to create a new, advanced training program for the SOCOM K9 units, he said, looking her straight in the eye. Focusing on solo handler deep reconnaissance, your specialty. They need someone to build the program from the ground up. Someone who wrote the book on it. They want you, Anya. Anya looked out at the mountains, a thoughtful expression on her face. 2 years ago, she would have laughed in his face. A year ago, she would have said no. But now, it would be a civilian contractor position, Vance added quickly. You'd answer to me. You make the rules. You train them your way, the right way, so we never have another Helmand. So we never lose another Mike Davis. This was her choice, not an order, a chance to turn her pain into a purpose. A chance to honor the memories of the fallen by protecting the living. A chance to ensure that the lessons she and Ghost had learned in blood and dust would not be forgotten. She looked down at Kilo. He nudged her hand, as if he already knew her answer. She looked towards the granite marker under the pine tree. She could almost feel Ghost's presence, a quiet, reassuring weight by her side. Her war wasn't over. She finally understood that it would never truly be over. But she had found a new way to fight. Not with a rifle in some distant, dusty land, but with knowledge, with experience, with hope. Her mission had changed. It was no longer about hiding from the world. It was about building a better one handler, one dog, one mission at a time. The deepest scars, she realized, weren't a sign of weakness, they were a map. A map that, after all this time, was finally showing her the way home. The path of a warrior is never easy, and the greatest battles are often the ones fought within. Anya's story is a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the unwavering loyalty of the four-legged heroes who stand by our side. What do you think of Anya's decision? Should she go back to train the next generation? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Her journey is far from over, and your voice matters. If this story of courage, loss, and redemption moved you, please do us a favor and hit that like button, and share this video with someone who understands the true meaning of loyalty. And if you haven't already, click subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss the next powerful story we have to share. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.